Good morning, YouTube. My name is Will.
Enzo.
Lotus. And it is a gloomy, rainy day. So let's talk about how you can finance old cars. Whether it be an Evo, like my Evo 8 RS here, or any type of used car you might be interested in. You know, one of the things as car guys that is very appealing to us is the fact that you can get some really cool cars if you have cash. One of the things I found most frustrating when I was looking to buy my first couple cars in life, I could have no problem. I could walk into any car dealership and get financed on a brand new car that was going to depreciate immediately and all this other nonsense and cost whatever, $20,000, $30,000. But if I wanted to buy a car that was $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, nothing. No help whatsoever. It drove me nuts that it's like I felt like I was being forced to buy more expensive cars. Now, obviously, you could buy used cars at late models and such, and have a little bit more luck, obviously, but it drove me nuts. So one of the things that I finally learned in life is credit unions. Now, I had known about credit unions for a while before I finally found the right credit union. So I will preface this by saying that not all credit unions are going to be the same on this. For example, the first credit union that I found and became part of, I'm sorry, am I boring you? Would finance virtually any car, but only for 24 months. And it's like, well, that's silly. I mean, even something like a $9,000, $10,000 car is going to have a $500 payment or something. It's like, that doesn't really help. What I finally ended up finding was a credit union that would not only finance pretty much any car, but would do it on terms that were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years even. I think they do it like 8 years now, which is just crazy. So I will say that, it may take a little bit of time, but if you find the right credit union, you can finance any car virtually. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. Obviously, credit's going to be a factor. If you have poor credit, or if you're a young guy, girl, and don't have much credit at all, they may still do it, but they may require a down payment or anything. That's just financing 101. That's just how the world works in those regards. But if you have good credit, or you're older, whatever, you've established yourself somewhat, I find that I can finance basically any car. And, like I financed this car. This car was financed at 3.25% for 4 or 5 years. Which, I mean, this car is almost 15 years old. When I bought it, it was like 12 years old. And I was getting 3.25%. I had friends that were buying new cars that weren't getting 3.25%, and I was getting it on a 10-plus-year-old Mitsubishi with 120,000 miles. That's the other thing. Some banks or some credit unions will finance, but they want the mileage to be a certain way. The thing I love about my credit union is they strictly go off of the value of the car. They want to know what kind of car it is. They do want to know how many miles because that affects the value, and then they will simply issue you a loan based on that number. Now, some things to keep in mind. Primarily on my channel, I deal with Evos. I get a lot of Evo questions. The Evo market is weird because, when you look at things like NADA or Kelley Blue Book or whatever, despite my issues I have with those systems, they're what we have. They're the best we got, whatever. Those websites, those books, whatever, they're based on averages. And if you know much about statistics, if you don't have a good enough sample size, those averages can be really far off, which is what happens a lot of times in markets like the Evos. You see this in the Supras and some other things where the numbers just don't quite add up because all it takes is one or two getting sold cheaply to kind of just throw off the whole thing. You will notice this first and foremost. So like my credit union, they go off NADA. If you want to know what your credit union or bank is going to go off of, you simply just got to ask them. Most are going to go off NADA. I've not run into any that go off Kelley Blue Book, but I'm sure they're out there. Some are going to go off Black Book, which you're not really going to have access to, but I find that it's relatively similar to NADA. It can give you a good estimate. Oh, go boy, Enzo, go pee-pee. Brave in the rain. So one of the things I talk about when people ask me about certain Evos is, particularly 03 Evos, because they're worth the least amount, is as far as the Evo market goes, it's not a terrible deal per se, maybe a car that somebody has sent me. But because I know what NADA is going to put an 03 Evo at, I know that even my credit union, which is by far the most flexible that I've found, And with good credit, they're still going to max out at 120%. That means if that car's worth 10 grand in a DA, they're only going to max my loan out at 12. So, but I don't want wet. So if you're looking at an Evo that's for sale, even if it's arguably a good deal, but they want 16 for it, well, you're going to have to come up with at least $4,000 on your own. And that's assuming you have great credit. So just kind of keep those things in mind. I wanted to keep this short and to the point. Basically, if you want to finance an older car, whether it be an Evo, a Supra, whatever, old Mustangs, old Porsches, Mustangs, whatever. Anyways, you can do it. You're just probably going to need to find a credit union. I don't know if there's a minimum. I'm sure there's theoretically a minimum, but I know, like, I financed a car that was like $4 grand. I just didn't want to pay the cash. I bought it from a friend, and bank gave me a loan for like $4 grand or whatever it was, and my payment was like $90 or something. It was awesome, you know. And I would rather have the $4 grand in the bank and be paying $90, even if at a terrible interest rate. That was still like a few dollars interest a month. It was just, why not? Why would you not do that? So if you have any questions, comment below. If you have any questions you want to ask me specifically, you can DM me. You can DM me on Instagram. If you have any Evos that you're looking at and you want to ask me about, you can obviously comment below or DM me as well. Other than that, appreciate you guys as always, and I will see you tomorrow.